All right, guys, welcome back to Falcon Central Radio on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am your host, Aaron Freeman, joined by my guest co host, Charles McDonald of Football Outsiders, Setting Edge podcast, and a whole bunch more. Welcome back to the show, Charles.
What's up? It's good to be back. We finally have something to talk about, I guess. The Falcons have done, I guess like some minor tweaks to their roster, so that's something better than people complaining about them doing absolutely nothing a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are going to complain about everything the Falcons do from time to time. So, yeah, there's something going on. Not a whole lot, but something. But today's episode, we're going to talk about the recent signings of Justin Bethel and Derek Shelby. We'll also be going over maybe their draft plans, focusing exclusively on the D tackle position because, of course, we have Charles here, and he's a D-line guru, as some might say. And, of course, we'll answer you guys' mailbag questions at the end of the show. So let's get things started here by jumping into the news. And the Falcons signed Justin Bethel, I guess that was last week, to a one-year contract. And they also brought back Derek Shelby on a one-year deal. Charles, what did you think of those moves?
I mean, the Justin Bethel move, I was more surprised at the reaction of it, I guess, than the signing of it, because there were people who were saying, oh, no, he's a Pro Bowler. He's going to come in and take pool spots at third nickel corner, best CB trio in the league. Let's go. No, that's not why he's here at all. He's not a good corner, like, in any stretch of the imagination. Just go watch, like, the first 49ers game from last year, in Brian Hoyer and like those no-name receivers just lit him up. So that's not what the deal is. And even if you just look at his snap counts, Arizona, they pretty much took him off of defense completely after like week 5, and he was just a special teams guy. So he's just going to come in here, maybe compete for like CB4, CB5, and be a stud on special teams. Like, that's why they brought him here. He's a Pro Bowl special teamer, not a Pro Bowl cornerback, if that needed any clarification.
Yeah, like, I know for a couple of years now, Arizona tried to make him into a thing as a starter. They've basically been trying to pencil him in like every training camp as their starting cornerback opposite Patrick Peterson, and it hasn't really worked out. And like, I went back and started watching some of his film because, like, yeah, I know he's been up and down, but maybe there's some untapped potential, which is why Arizona was always constantly trying to make him into a starting cornerback. And I just watched the first game of him getting wrecked by Kenny Golladay, and it was just like, oh, okay, yeah. He's not, that was Kenny Golladay is not a bad receiver by any means, but like
that was his first NFL game.
Yeah, he just wrecked them, and it was just like, dude, you've been in the league for 7 years. Like, how are you letting a rookie wreck you like this? So. Like, and it wasn't just like, oh, he's in position and Golladay, because he's 6'4", can make the plays. It was just like, no, he's like not within like 8 yards of Kenny Golladay on some of these passes that he's given up. So, yeah, he's a good special teams player. You certainly could argue he's an upgrade over Bleedy Ray Wilson, maybe, just because he's more athletic. But if he's forced to play significant reps this year, it probably means something has gone wrong with the Falcons' quarterback depth. So, yeah, he's going to help out on special teams, which is needed because, this special teams has not been particularly good the last couple of years. And anybody that can upgrade that unit with an infusion of talent, particularly as a guy that's good at covering kicks, good at blocking punts and blocking field goals and whatnot, it's going to be a big benefit for the Falcons.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Derek Shelby. That was a move that some people were confused by because the Falcons basically brought him back, close to the same money that they let him go for. So it was kind of like I don't know. It's like they didn't gain any cap space. It was just like, hey, Derek Shelby, hang out for a week and then we'll bring you back. And we just basically shaved 1 year off of your contract, I guess. So what did you think of that?
Yeah, like it was kind of weird, like the money situation, but I mean, they just needed more bodies. Like, they just need bodies on the defensive line going into the draft. So, I think Shelby's a fine player. for like 1 year for whatever role, like the same role I'm assuming that he had last year. That's fine. I'm pretty pleased. I don't think it changes their plan for the draft at all. So, it's good to just get some depth back before you walk into the draft.
Yeah, I think having Shelby there to play that base defensive end spot means that you don't necessarily have to pull the trigger on a guy early in the draft if you want a guy that because if you want a day one starter in the draft, you basically kind of have to use one of your first 3 picks on that guy, because after that point you're just sort of throwing stuff at a wall and hoping something sticks. And I think given this draft class, I don't know how you feel about the DN class, but there isn't a ton of guys that I would be like, oh yeah, that guy can come in right away and give you what Derek Shelby could have given you this season in that role. So I think it's a pretty good signing, and it's not like you're spending a ridiculous amount of money. You're paying him basically low end starter money, which I guess you were paying him high end starter money before. So it is what it is. I think Shelby had a good, really solid year. It was probably our second most consistent run defender besides Grady Jarrett last year. And, teams still do run the ball about 45% of the time. So that does have some value, just maybe not as much value as maybe a 10-sack guy that I think some people were hoping the Falcons would replace Shelby with a guy like Pernell McPhee, who wound up in Washington. I'm still curious to sort of see how much money McPhee got from the Redskins, and maybe that sort of forced the Falcons' hand a little bit. Maybe McPhee wanted a little bit more money, but in the long run, I think getting Shelby back for another year is solid, and we'll kick that can down the road, I guess, as far as upgrading that DN spot, and maybe they'll get a guy in the draft, and maybe they'll wait till next year.
Yep.
We got some mailbag questions from Evan Birchfield. He asked, how would you grade the Falcons offseason up to this point, A through F?
Like a C, maybe. I feel like they've maintained well. I think they've done fine for the cap room allotted they have so far. I just kind of wish that they had gotten that, or I wish that they had already gotten the Ryan deal done, so they had a little more wiggle room heading to the draft. But it's fine. I think that people are probably feeling a little bit better about missing out on the Michael Bennett trade as of today. And that's a whole nother topic, but it's fine.
Yeah. I gave it a B- the other day, mostly because unlike previous off seasons, the Falcons haven't done anything yet to really piss me off, like they did with letting DeMarco go last year and the year before with signing Sanu to all that money. So I'm good with going like a B-. Like they didn't really do anything that really moves the needle other than getting Fusco. They got some cheap veteran players that can help the team, but nothing that's gonna get that sex appeal that people are always looking for in free agency. So it's been a okay off season, and you could certainly argue it's the weaker off season of the Dan Quinn era, but because he's had such good off seasons, that's not a negative. So we'll see what the draft, and basically we'll remember this off season primarily probably be because of who did we pick in the first round, and if they hit a home run with that pick, no one's going to really care that they didn't do much in free agency.
Yep.
Evan Birchfield also asked, do you think the Falcons will sign anyone else prior to the draft? If so, who in what position?
I don't know. I don't really know like what they need to patch up like right now. Maybe if they can get a Ryan or Jake Matthews extension done before the draft, maybe they can take a swing at Hankins, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think right looking at the roster, I would probably say fullback's probably the only glaring hole on the roster. And since I'm not necessarily a big fan of drafting fullbacks, because generally speaking, it doesn't really work out for teams. When you go back, looking at most of the fullbacks drafted, like the guy plays like 2 years with his team and then gets cut or traded. I do think if you can get a veteran like Zach Line at this point, I think that would be a solid move. But other than that, there isn't necessarily, I would love for them to get a D tackle, a quality D tackle like a Hankins or Benny Logan or somebody like that. But unless they can get, some money freed up in the next couple of days, that's probably not very likely. So You know, yeah, I guess that would be my answer. All right, let's talk D tackles. Charles, what are your thoughts on sort of where the Falcons need help at this D tackle position? I think everybody universally agrees this is the one glaring need on the roster. Do you think they need a pass rushing 3 tech? You think they need a one stopping run tech, vice versa, or do they need all of the above?
Just pick a good player would be my suggestion. I mean, I'm not. I know like Hurst is my guy. I'm pretty sure he's your guy too. Like for me, it's Hurst and then everybody else, and that includes Vea, Taven Bryan. I mean, the thing with Vea is, well, Hurst. Okay, let me backtrack because there are people who don't want Hurst because they think he's too similar to Grady Jarrett. But I mean, I'm not really even worried about that. Like, just get 2 guys who can penetrate up the field and just kind of let everything else fall into play. And it's not even like I don't even think Hurst is awful at anchoring versus the run. He's just 292 pounds at his pro day, and you're going to take some losses there, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. With Vea, I don't know. Like, I would be okay with him at 26 if he's still on the board. Like, just because like he does have the peak plays, which are just ridiculous versus the run. But on like a down to down basis, I just don't think he's that consistent, and that kind of worries me when you're going to take a guy that high. But when you think about it, who else is really even out there that's intriguing? At least to me, in round 1, it's like Hurst, Vea, and then that's really the only 2 guys I would want to take round 1. I think Bryan is a huge project. Like he's like very clearly an athletic freak. Like when you watch him on Florida, like there's no doubting his athleticism. He backed it up at the combine like tenfold. He was amazing there. But I don't know. There's just like the switch isn't always on in his head. He kind of lacks like that killer instinct, kind of like Hagman when he first got in the league in 2014. Like you see the freak plays, you see the athleticism, but there's just too many plays where he's missing stuff that's like right in front of him, or it's just a lot of plays where he just goes like brain dead. And Payne, like Deron Payne, the defensive tackle from Alabama, I don't get the appeal really. You've had, if you just look at this season, right? If you just took the Florida State game, the first game, and the Georgia game, the last game, you'd be like, wow, this guy's like a top 5 pick, like one of the best defensive tackles we've seen in a while. But if you go back and look at the other 13 games they played, where like he just disappears for games at a time. I mean, in 3 years, he's only had 5 tackles for losses. And we've seen guys that are not as explosive as him in recent memory in Alabama, like Ashawn Robinson and Jaron Reed, have more productive careers than he did. So obviously, like the athleticism is tantalizing, like the size, speed, explosion is tantalizing, but the lack of production is a little bit worrisome. And just when you look back at like who the Falcons have picked in the first round, really, in the Dan Quinn era, Vic Beasley, Keanu Neal, Takk McKinley, all 3 of those guys were very productive college players. So I don't really see that. I don't really see Deron Payne being a guy that's going to be on their radar at 26. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I think Payne is a good player, but you're right. It does feel like, basically, like I remember. Because like watching him, and I heard people talking about him in December, and I went and watched him. And I'm like, yeah, he's like a pretty typical Alabama nose tackle. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Bama players in general because I've been let down by those guys quite a bit in terms of their projection to the NFL, and so I kind of think in general a lot of Alabama players get by because they're playing with so much other quality NFL level talent, but very few of those guys sort of, generally speaking, over the course of Saban's career there have sort of become great NFL players. There's obvious exceptions like Julio Jones and whatnot. So, but a lot of those guys, I think, sort of benefit from basically if you play beside an NFL player in college, it makes your job a lot easier and it makes you look a lot better than what you actually are. But that being said, like watching Payne, I was like, yeah, he's good. A solid 2nd round pick. And then he comes out in that Georgia game, in the national title game, and he's just destroying Georgia's offensive line like every single snap. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, this is not the same guy that I had seen in previous games that year. And so it's one of those things where it's like you got to ask the question of, is the guy at his best is that an outlier? Because when you just look at his career at Alabama, it looks to be an outlier. Or is this sort of him, what you can sort of mold and develop in the NFL if you use him correctly? And, I'm a little skeptical of that because, like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, if the Falcons took him at 26, I wouldn't have an issue with it because I just think, given the need and given, you can convince yourself, oh, we can mold him and he can be that player that he was against Georgia every single week. Whether that becomes true, who knows? But at that point in the draft, I'm not going to be complaining too much about a second-tier D tackle.
I think Payne is like, you'd feel better about rolling the dice at your second round pick than the first. But I mean, just in general, I don't really think this defensive tackle class is all that good. So like, it's kind of like Hurst, Vea, and then just roll the dice on athletic guys.
Yeah, I'm basically, my thing is like, I feel like whoever the Falcons pick, they're going to have to double dip in this draft. Because I was one of those people back in January being like, man, Maurice Hurst is a really good player, but I kind of want a bigger guy to play beside Grady Jarrett. But now I'm just like, Maurice Hurst is a really good player, and yeah, I do kind of want a bigger guy to play. But who is that guy? And Vea's obviously, but like Vea's not that guy. He's not Fletcher Cox. He's more like Danny Shelton than that, in my opinion. But but I'm like, okay, you get Hurst, and then you go back in round 2 or round 3 and get that nose tackle, get that that wide body, that 320-pound guy, and then you just sort of say, okay, on rundowns, Grady, you go to the 3 like you did when Rubin was the run defending nose tackle last year, and the third round pick is the nose tackle, and then on passing downs, you just have Hurst be the 3, and they're both 3s, Jarrett and Hurst. And you just basically use Hurst as a nickel down specialist. And in that situation, the fact that he's only 290 pounds is not really a concern, because that's actually a benefit if he's only playing nickel downs, and you eventually develop his ability, to be that every down defender, which he's certainly capable of being. But like, that's sort of how it is with me, regardless of who the Falcons pick. There isn't a single D tackle that I think, boom, you draft that guy and all your issues are gone away and you don't have to worry about that position. I think you got to come back in round 2 or round 3 or whenever and still address that position. And so it's really basically, that's one of the reasons why I'm not that concerned about taking Payne in round 1, because I'm like, you're still going to have to get another guy later in the draft. And maybe you go and get a guy like Nathan Shepard, who, is that raw piece of clay or something like that you want to mold into, or whoever it is. It's just one of those things where it's just like, if they went 3 D tackles with their first 3 picks, I'd be cool with that too.
Same.
So it's like, whatever, just draft guys. So when you say like, I just want a good player, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Just draft
someone. Because the thing is, like, we've seen in this offseason, and really, I guess over the Dan Quinn regime, I guess, is like they came in with Soliai and added they came in with Soliai and Babineau, right, and added Jarrett. And then they let go of Soliai and Babineau. And who they have in 2016? Babs was on the team, right?
Yeah, Babs. Was Jackson still with the team?
Yeah, Tyson Jackson was on the team too. So like, they've kind of gotten rid of like Soliai, Jackson, Babs over the past 2-3 years. But the only people they've added were like Poe and Rubin on 1-year deals. So I think when you look at how the Falcons are constructed right now, you have young contracts at linebacker, DB, edge, but the only young contract you have is Grady Jarrett on the inside, and you're about to give him an extension like next summer probably. So you really just kind of need to just fill it up with young bodies and young contracts, so you don't have to keep recycling guys in and out every year. So yeah, just if they want to take 3 DTs and let them all fight to the death, that's fine with me. But it's just they really need to have more bodies there.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel. If you're looking, how deep have you gone in this draft class? Are there certain guys that you're sort of looking at in day 2 that you're like, I kind of like this guy?
Let me pull up my little Falcons draft board. I haven't watched most of these guys, but there was, I can't remember his name right now. It's loading. This is great. This is great radio right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on. Oh, what do you think about Harrison Phillips? That's his name.
I like Harrison. Like when in December I started watching D tackles, and I looked at Harrison Phillips like, he's not a pass rusher, and I was like, forget him. And then I went and revisited him back in February before the combine, and I was like, okay, just don't look at him as what you want him to be, and look at him what he is. And what he is probably the best nose tackle in this draft class. And so it's one of those things like you put him at one technique, he's just going to be mauling centers and tossing those guys around. And so even if he was the pick at 26, I'd be like, yeah, he's not sexy, but like he's a good player. He's not going to be this super high upside sack artist, but you put him beside Grady Jarrett and he's just going to be just tossing dudes left and right, and he's going to make your team better. So I'd be cool with Harrison Phillips in round 2.
Yeah, and another guy that I still need to watch. Yeah, Phillips is fine, like as a day 2 guy. If you can get a Hurst or a Vea, whatever, in round 1, like Phillips is fine in round 2. But another guy that I still need to get to and watch that passed their like filters, I guess. BJ Hill from NC State. Like I don't know how I've missed him because I've watched so much Chubb, like Bradley Chubb, but I haven't paid attention to Hill, I guess. But he ran a 4.99 40-yard dash, which puts him in the 75th percentile, and he had a 7.28 3-cone, which puts him in the 91st percentile for that, and that's according to mockdraftpool.com. So, I mean, maybe I don't really know that much about him. Have you seen him?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why you missed him because he doesn't do anything that really forces you to look away from Chubb.
Yeah,
look, I like BJ Hill. He's a good player. Like I've always sort of seen him 3rd, 4th round, late 3rd, where the Falcons are picking 4th round. Great pick. He's going to be a solid player in the NFL. Since the combine, people have been talking about him like being a top 50 sort of guy, a 2nd round guy. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, he's not on that level,
I feel like this draft class kind of sucks in general. Like, come on, like who are there are no receivers anyone really cares about, right? Calvin Ridley, he's like 50 years old. Who's the edges? You got Bradley Chubb, Harold Landry. They're going to be gone in the first 10 picks probably. Then it's guys like Josh Sweat, who's had like a trillion surgeries since he was in college. Like, who are the marquee names like outside of the quarterbacks? Chubb, Landry, Barkley, Quentin Nelson, and Roquan Smith. Like, who's really that interesting?
This is a great draft if you want a guard. This is a great draft if you want a quarterback. This is a great draft if you want a running back.
Yeah, all the positions the Falcons don't really need to draft right now.
That's about it. I don't. Maybe this. This is also a pretty good linebacker draft. Again, the Falcons don't necessarily need that, and this is pretty decent cornerback draft from what I've seen. And there's Derwin James.
Oh yeah, Derwin, he's a monster.
Yes, Derwin's probably he's DP1, draft prospect 1 on my board. He's going to be my Miles Jack for this year. Hopefully he doesn't get picked by Tampa Bay. But yeah, I mean, like it's kind of not a great draft class. It's just kind of how the last couple have been, which is sort of like you really want to be picking a bunch of picks in day 2 as opposed to picking high. Unless you need a quarterback, it's not really worth it to have a top 15 pick, or you're going to get, one of those couple of guys like Derwin and Barkley that you named. So it is what it is. I mean, I think this is kind of how the draft is going to be from now on. It's just like you have a couple of top heavy guys that they're really special. And then there's a bunch of like, yeah, they'll be good. They'll be fine, but they're not going to necessarily, change the world. You have a bunch of Michael Brockers types instead of the Aaron Donald types that, that's how the draft, I think, kind of is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much at the point where I've seen almost everyone I care to see, and I'll just watch Falcons guys after the fact. Like last year, I ended up watching like KZ, and KZ was the only guy I watched after the draft because I already seen Brian Hill. Well, KZ and Harlow, so I almost kind of like that way better because you can get a better fit or feel like how they fit into the system.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that lesson back in 2011 because I watched like 300 guys, graded them all, and then the Falcons traded up for Julio Jones and only took like 4 of the guys I scouted. And I was like, why am I putting all this work in?
Yeah, that's what happened to me. Like in 2015, I want to say, I don't know, maybe 2015 was the first year I did this. Wherever the first year I did, yeah, it was the Vic Beasley year. So I think I scouted like 275 players, and then I only ended up really paying attention to the guys that were on the Falcons because that's my favorite team. And then I just thought about like, dude, I can. This is just such a waste of time for me if I'm not gonna go back and watch every single player and take notes on every single NFL team. I'll just do the Falcons guys and then some of the big name guys I like.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting out content like you're doing, out there like many people do, then by all means watch all 300 guys or whatever. But if you're just really you only care about one team, then it's a waste of time. That's what I learned back then. So, yeah. All right, let's get into some more questions. We got one from our boy Jalen Muhammad. He says, rank these players: Rasheem Green, Nathan Shepard, and Bilal Nichols. I'm assuming you haven't seen any of those guys, have you?
I've seen Bilal Nichols only because I interviewed him at the combine. He's not very good, but he's a freak. Actually, no, I saw Nathan Shepard at the Senior Bowl. I haven't gone back and watched any like his Fort Hays State stuff, but he was kicking ass at the Senior Bowl, and I think it's always a good sign when you see those smaller school guys come in and just kind of dominate at the Senior Bowl, which is kind of what he did. Actually, I've seen all three of these guys. If I had to rank them, I'd probably go Shepard by a decent amount, Green, and then Nichols. I don't get Green. Like I saw that he was athletic, and I kind of went back to watching, but I don't really think he does anything well right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with Green. Like he's an upside guy. Like if we didn't get Derek Shelby back, I would be like, okay, yeah, take Green in the third round. That's cool.
Fuck it, yeah.
But like, yeah, I would probably rank him the same way. Bilal Nichols, he's not great by any means, but like he's solid. He's gonna wind up being like a Vance Walker type of guy who's gonna be in the league for like 8 or 9 years or something like that, and never really be like a special guy. Shepard to me is the guy. Like he's my guy. Like if we're not getting Maurice Hurst, like Shepard's kind of the guy that I want the Falcons to take. I've seen like 2 games of his for Fort Hays State, and as you would suspect, he's just wrecking dudes. He's got the size
at the combine. I mean, at the Senior Bowl, man.
And then like he tested out the gym when you adjust it for weight. He was like 315, jumping like a 290 pounder at the combine. So like, I'll roll the dice on that dude anytime, because I just think he like you go and watch his Fort Hays State. I mean, as you suspect, he's getting double teamed every time. He's just tossing dudes aside. Yeah, he can play for the Falcons any day, if you ask me.
Yeah, like if they start off this draft with Hurst and Shepard, I might not even watch the rest of it. I mean, I'll just get the updates on my phone.
Fair enough. That's good. That's a good way to start it. Yeah. Jalen asks, "What's the deal with the Derek Nottie love?" And his second question is, if a player doesn't necessarily fit the athletic mold of the Falcons, like Hurst, what might be the caveat that might get them drafted?
Hurst hit it though. He hit the 40. Like he has for his position, he has a pretty fucking really fast 40 time. I mean, a 4.97 for a defensive tackle is moving. So, I don't think you should worry about Hurst in that sense. So I don't really know what would be the other one because so far in the Dan Quinn regime, they've only taken athletic players. So I don't even know if I kind of feel like they use the combine as a way to whittle down who they're going to draft because I think it's just so much easier if you come into draft weekend with a plan. Like, we're going to use our athletic filters to kind of filter the guys that we want to have on our team out. Obviously, film reigns supreme, but if you kind of have an athletic base, you have a smaller pool of players to pick from, which I think makes for easier decisions on draft day. And yeah, you're gonna miss guys who aren't freakishly athletic that are still good football players. But if you're okay with that, then that's fine. I just think that they use athleticism filters, one, to just make a more physically imposing team, and then 2, to just make it easier on draft day to come pick the players that you would like.
Yeah, and Hurst hit like the minimum broad jump that they like 104, 105 is what you're sort of looking for. I think that's like 50th percentile for D tackles.
Yeah, he was at the 42nd, but like 105 is the 50th. Because when you get to that point, like when you look at broad jump, it's just 1 inch can like jump you up like 6 percentile points because it's just measured and separated by 1 inch. So
Yeah.
He was at 104, which is 42 percentile, but like 105 gets you the 50.
Yeah. So like, I think with Hurst, like he didn't, test like this great athlete, but it's not really a concern for me with him. Jarrell Casey tested poorly too, and he's turned out just fine. Um, I think a lot of it is, basically the Falcons like guys that jump far or run fast, and guys that competed in All-Star games. And that's generally what they look for, and I think that's generally what they're going to draft. And I think the thing, if you're looking for some of these other outliers, it's typically guys that they know. I think it's also guys that they work out themselves, and they do this sort of college campus tour where Dan Quinn and coaches go to different schools and test guys and do sort of specific drills. That's why they drafted Keanu Neal. Because Charles, you and I talked about this when we drafted Keanu Neal. Like he never played man coverage at Florida. He had like 15 snaps of man coverage, so you didn't know if he could do it. And they went to his campus workout and ran him through some specific man coverage drills, and we're like, yeah, he can do it. He's good. Check the box.
The funniest thing, so when I was at the combine, I saw it was a Saturday, but that Saturday in the combine weekend, and I saw Dan Quinn and TD at a bar, and I just struck up a conversation with Dan Quinn, and he just brought it back to Keanu's. I don't know how we started talking about Keanu, but he was like, you were probably one of those people in the media that were talking shit about that pick, weren't you? I was like, no. I was pretty high on him. I thought he was pretty good. He's like, yeah, he's the best strong safety in the league right now, and everyone doubted me. I was like, okay, dude. So like that was clearly a Dan Quinn pick, and luckily it's worked out for them. But it's just funny, like that's his guy on the defense. Like that's who we talk about more than anybody else. He loves that guy.
Well, he is like the best.
He's one of the best
guy too. Yeah, like he's great. He doesn't get enough love. I'll fight people alongside Dan Quinn for Keanu. Like he does not get. A lot of Falcon players don't get enough respect on the particularly in the secondary. But yeah, man, Keanu's really good. He's really, really, really good. And it was just really a question of, since he never played man coverage at Florida, can he play man coverage in the NFL? And he's answered that question with flying colors. It wasn't doubting it. It was just like, I don't know. You have any thoughts on Derek Nottie before we move on?
He's whatever, day 3 rotational guy.
Yeah, I mean, like at that point, when you're picking in the middle rounds and you're picking nose tackles, you're not going to get athletes.
No,
you're just going to get a guy that's productive. That's what you want. So yeah, Nottie's fine. He didn't test well, but I don't care.
Probably not going to be a Falcon, if I had to guess.
More than likely not. Probably a Chief. Rise Up Ryan KC asks, if the top 3 D tackles are off the board by the time the Falcons pick Hurst, Payne, and Bryan, do you think they go best player available? And who do you guys prefer out of those 3 D tackles? Of course, we already answered that part, but
first
part of the question.
In this hypothetical, is Vita Vea still on the board? Because if Hurst is gone, I want Vea. But I feel like Vea is going to go before Hurst in this draft.
I think Vea is going to go before Hurst.
But like, let's just say Hurst, Vea, Payne, and Bryan all go off the board in top 25. I mean, that means somebody pretty damn good, like a secondary player, probably fell. Like, I'm not really sure. Because, I mean, the only corner that I've got my eye on would be Denzel Ward, but he's probably going to be going way before the Falcons pick.
Yeah, he's going top 10.
Yeah. So I don't even really know like what position they would go if they don't go DT in the first round. Because I guess if you're not going to go DT, could you just take a flyer on Mike Gesicki or something like that?
You could. I mean, at that point, like, the Falcons don't really have a clear-cut need. Like, I think cornerback makes the most sense just because of the quality of the players and the value of the pick. But it doesn't seem like, based off of what they've done in free agency, that they're that interested in drafting a cornerback high.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, before they signed Fusco, however you say his name, I was in on Willie Hernandez, or Isaiah Wynn, but I mean, I guess I wouldn't complain if they picked him, but I guess it just feels a little cluttered now if you add them. Because you still got Levitri here too. So I don't really know. I honestly, I don't really know where they would go. If the top 3 or 4 DTs are gone, I think they probably just stick to whoever the best player on their board is, and it's impossible for us to know that.
Yeah, I think at this point, like I'm not necessarily a fan of trading up, but it does seem like they're going to probably trade up to get one of those 4 guys. Or if they don't do that, then they'll probably try to trade back and take a guy like Harrison Phillips or something like that at the top of round 2 at the end of round 3.
Yeah,
or round 1.
How surprised would you be if they traded up for Vea? I personally wouldn't be that surprised. I don't know.
Nothing the Falcons do really surprised me at this point. Like, when we traded up last year, it's like, oh, we're trading up. We're going to get Forrest Lamb. Nope, getting tagged. Like, oh, okay. I didn't think that was going to happen, but like nothing the Falcons did. Like when they passed on Jack 2 years ago, like, oh, okay. I guess we're getting Keanu Neal in round 1. Okay, cool.
Fine. Yeah, that one worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it generally works out. That's why it's like, like it's funny because like we all have that initial reaction when they pick that guy in the first round, like, oh, really? And then it works out. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of this regime has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt where I'm not going to freak out over whoever they pick in the first round.
Yeah, and look
unless it's like a quarterback or something just ridiculous like that.
It's Lamar Jackson. I think you will be very happy about that one.
Well, no, because then we wouldn't even get to see him play for a few years because that'd be a waste.
Oh no, he'll be a wide receiver.
Oh, okay. Now you're just playing my emotions.
Jelani 234 asks between Maurice Hurst and okay, I think we already answered this question. Double different. We already answered that one. That's why we gotta vet these questions beforehand. Okay, Vienna Falcons. Worst case scenario: Big 4 gone. Dimitrov somehow restrains himself from trading up. Which other D tackle could warrant a pick at 26? What are the best second round options? What's the deal with BJ Hill? How about my boy Foley Fudakasi as a late 3rd round option?
Haven't seen Foley Fudakasi, but he had a good 3-cone and broad jump, so I would imagine the Falcons would probably bring him in at some point. What other DT? If the Big 4 are gone, I don't know. Would you take Shepard there? I guess. Like I have no idea. Harrison Phillips maybe because he is productive.
Was Fudakasi? Was he at the Senior Bowl or was at the Shrine Game?
I don't know.
It was at one of those games. He tested well. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know. 3rd round seems a little rich for him, but like 4th round, like if you're the type of person like I am who makes a distinction between 3rd and 4th round, then I'd probably have him more in the 4th round range. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of like yeah, Harrison Phillips, Nathan Shepard. Those probably be, if I was ranking them, they would probably be like 5 and 6 for me. So yeah, I guess they would be the best second round options. And BJ Hill's fine. Okay. Jelani 234. Besides D tackle, what other position do the Falcons need to find a starter in this draft?
But do they need to find a starter at? I don't know. I mean, I'd think if they took a guard, I guess it wouldn't be awful. It'd be kind of silly though after paying Fusco, but I don't.
Cornerback's is probably the only position that I feel like
if you want to, if you want to upgrade Poole, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just go all in on nickel guys early.
Yeah, like if Jair Alexander from Louisville, if he's there, I mean, I'd be all in on that. But I don't even know if he's going to be there at pick 26.
I think he will be. I think his injury history is going to scare teams off. But I don't know. I have no idea how this draft is going to go, to be honest with you. Like, I have a handle on like the top 10, maybe. And then after that, it's just like no idea.
I got a handle on the top 1. I think it's going to be Darnold at 1, and then after that, I have no clue.
I think it's going to be quarterbacks that come 2, 3, and 4. I don't know what order they're going to go.
Or
I think it's going to be Rosen. Yeah, I think it's going to be Rosen, Allen, and Mayfield, probably in that order. But to who, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And then Lamar's going to go somewhere in the top 15.
Yep.
I have no idea who. Maybe Arizona, maybe Miami. Who knows? Okay. Mave2124 asks, what do you make of Garland playing D tackle again this year? Possibly still keeps the guard as a first round choice, even though D tackle is a glaring need.
Is he playing D tackle again this year?
No, he's not playing D tackle.
Yeah, I thought they came out and said he's playing guard.
No, he's not playing D tackle. I mean, if he only plays D tackle because we don't have a guy on the roster. You know, as soon as we signed Ruben, he stopped playing D tackle. So, like, if he's playing D tackle, it means something has horribly gone wrong.
Yeah. So I don't really even feel the need to answer that question.
All right. Luis Abraham on Twitter asks, how often will we see Tack and Vic on the field together on opposite sides? What are your expectations for Duke Riley? And do you guys have a list of first and second round talent players Atlanta has held interviews with? No to your last question, I can tell you that.
I don't have one to the last question. I mean, earlier today, Dan Quinn at the owners' meeting today, he said that he's going to have Tack and Vic on the field together a lot. So there's your answer right there. What are your expectations for Duke Riley? Hopefully that he can. I mean, I don't really even know, because where does he play really?
Base defense, I guess, with weak side base.
Does he just spell? Or is he just going to play like 30% of snaps or something?
I don't know. Like, you know, early in the season, he was playing base, and then like he would get like 2 or 3 series a game in nickel, you know, and then he got hurt, and then they stopped doing that. And so I don't know if they're going to go back to doing that. You know, I guess if he shows enough growth during training camp, I guess they'll mix him in there. But yeah, I guess at this point, he'll probably play base. My expectations he'll be better. I don't know if he's going to be, you know, flying all over the field making plays. But, you know, I think he's got a worse rap than what his play deserved as a rookie. Like, I think because people's expectations were, you know, expecting him to be like this Pro Bowl caliber player like Deion Jones and whatnot was. But, like, people forget that Campbell wasn't that good as a rookie. But, you know, because he wasn't Paul Warlow, people kind of let it slide. And I guess because Duke Riley wasn't on that level with Deion Jones and them, that they gave him a worse rap. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Duke Riley developing to a solid player like at all. I just don't really know where his snaps are going to come from, because right now I think Devondre, if Devondre takes another step this year, then like how you really shouldn't be putting Duke Riley on the field. You know,
it's true.
So I don't know, but to have a third linebacker that's talented, you know, that's always a good thing. So I think he's going to improve when he gets in the field. I just don't know where and how often it's going to be.
I mean, like, I think you can see a scenario if Duke makes the strides that you want him to. Like, I think you can see a scenario where when we play certain teams that have, you know, good receiving running backs, you would rather have Duke out there just because he's quicker and he can handle the speed a little bit better. But when we face teams that have good tight ends, you want Devondre out there because he's got the length and whatnot to match up better with tight ends. So I think you can see a scenario where they sort of alternate, and based off of you know, the specific matchups that they have, the Falcons can sort of mix and match them in the nickel and whatnot beside Deion Jones. But, you know, we'll see. And as for Tack and Vic, yeah, they're going to be playing pretty much all the time on opposite sides. Like,
yeah,
I don't know why that's a question, but okay. Mave2124, can you guys explain how Wade injured on IR works? That seems to be what happened to Devin Fuller, because he doesn't seem to be in the team's plans, but he is on the roster. I can take this one, Charles. I know this.
I have no idea.
Waived injured, basically, if a guy has less than 3 years of experience and he gets hurt, he has to clear waivers. So what happens is they have to waive a guy, and then he has to clear waivers. And if he clears waivers, he goes on IR. And this only happens basically in training camp because it's a rule to basically prevent teams from stashing young players on their roster that aren't going to make their team. And they say, oh, we can just put them on IR and we don't, have to worry about that. And so they have to clear waivers. That's basically how it works. So when Fuller got waived at the beginning of last training camp because he got hurt, he cleared waivers and he's on IR, and he came off IR at the end of the season. He's still on the team. That's basically how it works. Okay, Evan Birchfield asks, how would you rank the NFC South currently based off the end of the season and the new offseason?
I'll just do tiers. I think Falcons, Saints are the class of the division. And then, I just don't know what to make of the Panthers offseason because I thought they had a chance to kind of keep a nice little nucleus together if they kept Norwell and Starr, I guess. But, they seem to be kind of in disarray without a plan like usual. But I'm sure Cam will drag them to 9 or 10 wins like he always does. I just don't trust the Bucs yet. I mean, their defense was atrocious last year, and I'm just not convinced that they made enough moves to quell those concerns yet.
Yeah, I think the Bucs made some positive moves, but I've been burned many, many times over the years thinking the Bucs were going to make a big leap, and it didn't happen. So I'll believe that when I see it. Carolina, I'll be curious what Carolina does in the draft, particularly with their first 2 picks, because I feel like if they can sort of shore up that offensive line and get a replacement, an upgrade for Jonathan Stewart at running back, I think they're going to be back in the hunt. But if they don't do that, then I think you're right. They're probably sort of in that 8-8, sort of 9-7 mix. And I'll give the Saints the benefit of the doubt. They won the division last year, so they're the team to beat, and I'll put them 1, I guess. But the Falcons are very close. Very, very close.
Yeah, NFC is loaded.
It is, There's no reason to ever watch an AFC game this season.
No, don't watch AFC football to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's the worst. Okay, Evan Birchfield asks, if the Falcons make a first-round trade, what mock trade could you see happening?
Maybe trading up into the teens for Vea, because he seems like, I guess this. I don't know, because I guess the issue is we don't know how the Falcons feel about Hurst's Hart, which is a wild card, and that's going to be more of a team by team basis on how comfortable you feel there. So I think if they trade up, it's probably going to be for a guy like Vea, if I had to guess.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, interesting you asked this question, Evan, because I have a mock draft coming out later this week, possibly tomorrow, where the Falcons do trade up, and it's not for Vea. They trade up like 2 spots to get Taven Bryan. So, yeah, I guess since I mocked that in the draft, then I see it as possibly happening. So, yeah, I think they'll probably, if they feel like, I think they'll feel pretty compelled, I guess, to get one of those 4 guys. And if they, if one of those guys have, like, say Vea and Hurst both go in the top 15, then I think there's a really high probability that they'll trade up. But if there's a run sort of in the late teens or in early 20s, they might try to move up or something like that. So we'll see what happens. All right, our last question comes from Mave2124. Have the Falcons ever had a Mr. Irrelevant pick before? I think they should keep it and draft a fullback, a position most think is irrelevant but needed by this team.
I don't know if the Falcons have had a Mr. Irrelevant pick before.
I don't think they have.
Off the top of your head?
I don't think. If they did, it's been many, many, many years, like in the 90s.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. And, man, I'm not going to sit here and talk about who they should pick the last pick in the draft. Who cares? Those guys might not even make the team.
Let's see. The Falcons. Nope, they've never had a Mr. Irrelevant pick. Wait, hold on. Yeah. Nope, never.
If you're gonna draft a fullback with the last pick in the draft, just sign one before the draft or after the draft.
I'm looking at the list of Mr. Irrelevance And the only player that stands out is Ryan Suckup, the kicker.
No, there you go. So maybe they can draft Matt Bryant's eventual replacement. Even then, that would be stupid. I have no interest in the Mr. Relevant pick. Probably be someone we've never heard of before.
That's usually who it is.
Yeah.
Looking at the list of guys. Oh, there's David Vibora. Oh, awesome. Oh, Chad Kelly was Mr. Irrelevant last year.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
All right, there you go. You can get Jim Kelly's. No, I won't even say that. Shout out to Jim Kelly. Okay, that's it, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another Falcon Central Radio. Appreciate Charles for jumping on and stepping in for Scott, who will be back. If you haven't heard, he'll be back in about a week before the draft, taking a little hiatus, refreshing the batteries and whatnot. And we'll welcome back Scott in a couple of weeks. But Charles, you have the floor. Plug all the places where they can find your stuff: Twitter, internet, all that type of stuff.
You find me on Twitter at 4verts. Tomorrow we have a new episode of 70 Yards where Justice and I just kind of dicked around and answered mailbag questions about the holy trinity that is Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, and Michael Brockers for the Rams. I mean, we literally just spent like an hour talking about that. It was awesome. And then have a Derwin James piece going up on Football Outsiders. And I think in the coming days, partnering up with SB Nation to do like a little draft term glossary, which is it's funny as hell. It was fun to put together. So I hope that comes out this week. It was one of the favorite things I've worked on recently.
Okay. There you go, guys. You can find me on Twitter at FalcFans. Of course, check out all the stuff at ProFootballCentral.com. If you want to get your questions answered on the next show, use the hashtag Falcons Mailbag. Of course, give us a like on Facebook, Falcons Central Radio. Give us a like on YouTube, Pro Football Central on YouTube and whatnot. So subscribe to all that type of stuff. If you're looking for the podcast on the iTunes, it's under the heading PFC Radio. You should be able to find it. Hopefully we'll get a link up there on Twitter on Falcons PFC, the Twitter handle of the show, in the coming days, in case you can't. So until then, guys, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll be back next week to talk more Falcons.